All right, everybody. Welcome to my next guest, Jeremy Brandt. You are on the Proptech Genius Show. Have you ever been called a genius? Just curious.
Not to my face.
Not to your face. So, do you ever get confused with the guy from the Capital One commercials? Like, do you know his name is Jeremy Brandt?
I do. Yeah. We fight each other online
Do you
for
really?
SEO positioning. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So when my last name used to be my ex-husband's last name, my married name was Tiemann. And so there's another Amy Tiemann, and she wrote the book Mojo Bomb. So it was the same. I was like fighting for SEO
Yeah.
position with her. I'm sure she's a very lovely lady. I've never met her, but I would get the things all the time where like, hey, I would like to write your next book. I go, I've never written a book. What are you talking about, Willis? Like, I don't know. Too funny.
A funny story about that is that I think I'm higher than him in I signed up for an IMDb account before he did, which I'm
Oh,
sure frustrates him because he's an actor and I'm not. But I was on Shark Tank with a friend of mine a long time ago and have a screen credit on there. So I got
oh, that's
the
too
handle
funny. You were
Jeremy
on
Brandt before
Shark
he did.
Tank?
I
Shut up.
was, yeah.
That's awesome. We have to tell that story too. All right. Well, I'm
Yeah.
just gonna let you go. You can do your stuff. So this is Jeremy Brandt. So take it away, dude. Take it away.
Thank you, Emmy, and thank you for having me on the show. Pleasure to be here. I've been in kind of the prop tech space for 20 years. I started out as a network engineer, routers and switches and servers, kind of the plumbing of the internet. And in the early 2000s, when the internet market blew up, I started flipping houses and got into residential real estate and really loved it and kind of combined my two passions of technology and building things and the real estate business. And as you probably know, real estate's always kind of felt like it was behind the times when it comes to technology. And so we were one of the I started advertising online in 2001 or 2002 to find properties to purchase and flip. And that really led to building. So I flipped maybe 30 or 40 houses over a couple of years. But then that led to a lead generation business where now what we do is online marketing, nationwide SEO, pay-per-click. We have TV commercials and all kinds of stuff now, where people that want to sell their house for cash to an investor contact us. We qualify them, and then we sell that as a lead to a local real estate investor in their market who's going to buy their house and then fix it up and rent it out or Airbnb and sell it. And so that really became my passion, was combining this technology side of things, building an application to manage all of that, doing all this online marketing, and building a business around that. So kind of got out of actually buying and selling houses as a company and got really focused on building these digital solutions, mostly on the residential real estate investing side of things. And so built that up and have been through many boom and bust cycles. So in 2008, almost went out of business. Every real estate investor stopped paying marketing for a year, 2 years, and really, fortunately, we're able to survive through that time and then thrive as the market came back. And out of that, I bought a company called WeBuyHouses.com about 12 or 13 years ago. The idea was that we were going to build this national brand that reputable, experienced real estate investors could operate under. So we don't train people how to be real estate investors. We take people that are already very successful, give them a national brand, national advertising platform, national tools, national backing, and let them operate and scale up their business in their local market. So that's been incredibly rewarding to build. We've got about 100 offices around the United States now that are buying and renovating houses. And so I've always been, the two kind of passions or three passions I have been entrepreneurialism. I love helping entrepreneurs, working with entrepreneurs, mentoring entrepreneurs. I've been an entrepreneur myself for a long time. Technology, finding interesting ways to solve tough problems through technology, and then real estate, which is just a fascinating industry to be in, and so many opportunities to create businesses and wealth and jobs in kind of the real estate world, and so many different angles that you can come at it from. So that's a little bit of my arc. There's a lot of things that I left out, but that's a little bit kind of what I'm about.
So explain the difference between you and the ugly house people. Like as we buy ugly houses, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, because you said that they were franchises, or I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
So, probably a boring technicality, but in franchising, typically they're a franchise company. In franchising, typically what you do is you take somebody who's never done something and you sell them the system to do that thing. Think McDonald's or any of these other franchises you could buy. I have a friend that does a number of big franchise operations. They're always looking for people that have never done it. They train them how to do it because they want them to do it exactly their way. And so
Mhm.
that's what they do. They do franchising, and they're very successful at it. The downside of that is you have to follow their system. You have to do everything exactly their way, which makes sense in a franchise, right? You don't want to go to McDonald's in one city and have a burger taste one way, and go to a different city and have the burger taste a different way. So there's not a lot of flexibility
Mhm.
in franchising. We, having been in the business for so long, worked with many different clients that were part of franchise systems, and that was a big frustration. Was the system's very rigid? I have to do things a certain way. I can't be creative, and so my idea was to take something similar. What's the valuable part? It's the national brand. It's the national advertising. It's kind of the
Right.
awareness of a big reputable national company
Right.
without the downsides, which are restrictive ways of operating, restrictive ways of doing things, being forced into kind of certain boxes because of the rules of the franchise system. And so we do what's called a brand license. We have a lot less control over all of our licensees. They're independent businesses running their business as they see fit. Of course, you have a code of ethics, and we want to make sure that everybody's um, treating consumers fairly and is upfront and honest with everything. But
Mhm.
people are free to run their businesses how they want and leverage our national brand, national marketing campaigns, and kind of the things that we create to scale up their business. The other big difference between us and most franchises is that we give people exclusive territories. So if you're in Dallas, you're the only person that is in Dallas. You own Dallas. And so you can feel free to do any
Oh,
kind of marketing you want. You're not running advertising to help your competitor in the same market. Everything that you do is for you, and that has really had a couple of amazing benefits for our licensees. One is they own the market, they're building equity in it, so the value of their license goes up considerably when they sell it, which you've had a number of people do. Usually, they sell it for considerably more than they purchased a license for. And then the other thing is we run these annual mastermind groups where we get everybody together in a room, and rather than me talking or us bringing a paid facilitator or a paid speaker, we facilitate the conversation between all of our licensees. And it's
mhm.
actually quite magical because they own exclusive markets. Nobody's a competitor in the room. So
That's
everybody who owns a
nice.
different area isn't allowed to be in the other person's area. And so we find people are incredibly honest and open and forthcoming about both their struggles in business and what's really working for them. And so that, I think, has really elevated everybody's game in the residential real estate space for at least our group. And we often hear that's one of the most valuable things that people get out of being part of WeBuyHouses.com is that annual mastermind meeting and the weekly or the monthly online meetings that we have, where people just share what's working and share the struggles. And was especially valuable through COVID and through the interest rate changes. And anytime
Yeah.
there's a lot of chaos in the market, it's super valuable to get in a room of people that are all working the same problem, and you can kind of brainstorm together on it.
Yeah, and especially right now, right? Because residential real estate it's a tough business, right? And you just
Mhm.
and so your licensees, are they rental homeowners? Are they flippers, or what is their majority of the folks that you're are in your group?
Yeah, and WeBuyHouses.com, the majority of people are, they're buying residential real estate for investment purposes. The
Mhm.
disposition of that is all over the map. We have
Oh, okay.
one licensee who's got, I think, 600 or 700 doors of long-term rental real estate. We have another licensee that has, I think, about 60 short-term rental Airbnbs, and they're
Mhm.
building, there's over time building that rental portfolio through Airbnb. And then a lot of people are doing the traditional fix and flip, where they're buying a house, fixing up, turning around,
Okay.
putting on the MLS, and just selling it and running their
Yeah.
operation that way. And most people are probably a combination, of the above.
All of the above. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You buy a house that's on a lake, it's probably perfect for Airbnb. You buy a house that's in the middle of town, better for a fix and flip or long-term rental.
That makes total sense for sure. I mean, and you change your disposition strategy based on the market or the property or whatever it is. I mean, yeah, I was in that game for a long, long time. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, now, it's tough in most markets to make a long-term rental work if you're financing the
I
property
know.
because of interest rates. So, you kind of, and if you've got some long-term rentals you've had for a while that are at a 4% interest rate, you're probably not letting those things go anywhere because, you've
Yeah.
locked in really favorable financing.
So tell me about the licensing that you're getting. So you're helping them on the front end of it, like to find the leads, to find the deals. right. Do you do any of the back end stuff, the management of it after the fact, or are you working with, or where do you fit? I'm just
Yeah,
curious.
everything we do is on the front end. So the two main companies that we have are WeBuyHouses.com, which is the licensing business where locally owned and operated offices. And we help them run marketing, give them the national brand that they operate under. And then the other business that we have is Fast Home Offer, which is pure lead generation for investors. So we go out
Okay.
and spend all of our own marketing dollars so that home sellers contact us to sell their house to an investor, and then connect that home seller with a local investor in their area for a fee to the
Ah,
investor, not to the home seller. It's
okay.
free to the home
Okay.
seller, of course. And so, so we've had that business for 20 years, probably the largest in the residential real estate investing space,
Hmm.
doing lead generation. And that it's been great for investors because they can take the kind of all the hassle of marketing off of their plate and just
Right.
kind of turn a switch on and let motivated home sellers come in and work with those people and do what usually they do best, which is meeting people at the house, talking about buying their house, running the crews for the renovations, those types of things. And especially as marketing has gotten more and more technologically sophisticated, it becomes more and more difficult for any small business owner to try to understand all of those components and what's happening while still
Oh,
trying to run the basic blocking and tackling of their small business.
oh, for sure. Like, and so so they don't, do they need a website? Do they not? I mean, so basically you're taking all of that off of them and understanding SEO and blah, 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 and all that other stuff that a small business owner has no clue what that means.
Sure.
Sure,
Yeah.
right?
And look, it's true in every industry, right? And I mean, whether it's lending, I mean, if you look at Lending Tree did the same thing for mortgages.
Right.
They ran national marketing campaigns and then sold the applications to Quicken Loans, Wells Fargo, all these guys. So we do the
Mhm.
same thing in the residential real estate space. It's way more efficient for us to run, national pay-per-click campaigns, national TV commercials, national direct mail marketing campaigns. Everything just gets much more efficient at a national scale. And so we can do that and then provide it on a county basis or city basis to local real estate investors so they can get exactly what they want in their local market on a per lead fee, which is how we charge, just pay per lead, without having to think about all of those other things. And I mean, so much money has been wasted with SEO companies and doing SEO. For small businesses, it's a very significant expense and oftentimes doesn't pay off, versus when you do it nationally and kind of split up everything coming in the front door to the people that really need it. It becomes very efficient and everybody kind of wins in that scenario.
For sure. I mean, I was amazed when I had my businesses on when I was trying to do Google ads and all that other stuff. I was like, I can't afford that. There's just like no way. I mean,
Well, I remember, so
there's no way.
I started this lead gen business 20 years ago. And I remember Google, it was Google ads. And then this was before Bing was around. So it was called Overture, was the other search engine marketing company. And the clicks were, I think, 2 cents per click, 2 or 3 cents per click for keyword searches. And so anybody that was doing online marketing was just printing money because it was so inexpensive back then. And now it's gotten so technologically sophisticated. I think now, for top keywords, we might pay $20 or $30 per click. That's not even for a lead or for a customer. That's just for somebody to click on our ad, before they kind of go all the way through the funnel. So
Wow.
it has gotten incredibly expensive. Um, and yeah, people spend millions and millions of dollars on this types of marketing to generate leads.
So if I think about it, truly, y'all, since y'all have been around for a long time, and you're kind of like the official black market. I mean, because everything that you're doing is off market real estate, right?
That's right.
They're not, realtors aren't using you. They're not sticking it on the MLS, right? They're trying to sell it, to an investor and maybe they'll use a title company. That's how, when I was a single family I mean, I had someone scouting for me, right? And she was a realtor, but the person selling to us wasn't a realtor. And we were just and this whole thing with NAR. I mean, I don't want to get down that rabbit hole, but but still, but that's kind of cool. So y'all have a pretty good pulse. Are you using that data in any sort of way, like understanding how many transactions are going through, or do you have an eye into that on how many transactions are happening through your group?
Yeah, so we have a lot of analytics into kind of what happens within our system, and also interestingly can predict a lot of things that are going to happen in the market. Because if you
That's
think about
cool.
most real estate statistic data that comes out of NAR or comes out of different groups, it's all trailing information. So it's what happened, not even last month, but it's 3 months ago. It takes a while to gather the information, collate the information, then disseminate it. And so you have a pretty far back look about what's happening, and then they kind of revise the numbers. So even the first time you see the numbers, they're not even good because they got to revise them in the future. And so, what we see a lot of is the predictive nature of things, of who is contacting us from what markets to sell their house, what types of houses are coming into our system. Because we have hundreds of thousands of home sellers a year that contact us to sell their house. And so we have a pretty good pulse nationwide into what's happening in different areas. Are markets going up? Are markets going down? Are people finding it harder to sell their house or easier to sell their house? And that's all forward-looking data versus, listings, closings, sales prices of houses, all backward-looking data that you try
Right.
to use to predict the future. So, yeah, we have a lot of good information about, markets that are trending upward, markets that are trending downward, and can often see that a little bit earlier than, national statistical data.
Oh, that's cool. Are you publishing that anywhere or selling it?
We are not. Mostly it's internally for our clients. We use it for marketing purposes with our clients, but we've definitely discussed what's the best way to use kind of that information
For
in the
sure.
industry. Mhm.
Well, since you've been around so long, I mean, it would be really useful data, I'm sure,
Yeah.
and I think that's the big next gen of real estate, operations is that we got to find data and we have to have really good data sources and, hence why I started my company. But yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of the next generation of where we go for sure.
For
Yeah.
sure. I think data is super, I mean, is one of the most important things in real estate is um, it gives you an edge in whatever you're doing, whether it's, so
Right.
we use a lot of data sources in marketing. We use a
Hmm.
lot of data sources in qualification of leads that come into our system,
Hmm.
uh, to understand, is this a good lead or a bad lead, or is this fake, or is this valid, those types of things. And so we subscribe to a lot of these data sources. They're hugely important. I think that, if I look over the next 5 to 10 years of real estate, if you're running kind of a real estate company, the two things that you really have to be on top of, which are probably pretty obvious to all of the people watching this, but it's having really good data, and then understanding how to leverage all the AI tools in your business. So that's as a kind of technology company, that's a lot of what we spend a lot of our time thinking about as a service provider to the real estate industry. How do we leverage the information that we have, and then how do we
Hmm.
provide tools, the AI tools to the real estate community? I think there's a lot of amazing things that are out there right now, but much like the average business owner doesn't want to go learn Google AdWords and figure out how to run an advertising account,
Right.
the average real estate business owner doesn't want to go figure out the 10 different ways they could use ChatGPT to optimize their business. They just want a company to say, for $20 a month, here's the thing, and it's going to make your business this much better or faster in these different ways.
True.
And the real estate industry is really hungry for those tools. And I think companies that package those up, the data components and the AI components together, will do really, really well. And there's a ton of people doing it right now, but we'll do really well over the next 5 or 10 years. And it's certainly something that we're looking at in our business, of how can we launch some of these tools for people to, as we've used them internally, created tools for our own teams. How can we provide those to other real estate people in the real estate community, and help them optimize their business?
For sure. Yeah, no joke. I think, I'm hanging out in the commercial real estate space, so it's like that we're not competing, but yeah, I'm more focused on, okay, yes, AI is not going away. It's going to be here forever. And but I'm trying to get the data right. I got to get the real estate people like, can we get your data, please? Can we get it all in like one area? We're aggregating, but and then I go, the AI is going to be there when we flip the switch on, and it's all going to be groovy. But how do you
Yeah, well,
figure
and I think,
out all
you know,
those
my
things? Yeah.
my view on the AI stuff is, so I kind of came up during the building of the internet, when the web got really popular. And
Yeah.
so I lived through that cycle when I was first starting out in business. And I think AI to me is the same as when websites came online and every business
Yeah.
had to have a website, and when mobile phones came around. And it's kind of this cycle of, it's going to solve every problem and fix everything, and the world's going to be magical because of it too. It's just a tool that everybody's going to use, like a hammer or a screwdriver,
Hmm.
to run their business. And if you don't have one, you're going to be at a massive disadvantage. And if you have one, you're not going to be massive, over time, you're not going to be massively advantaged over everybody else because everybody else has the same access to the same tool. So to the degree that you can do it better than your competition using that tool, you're going to be great. But, at the beginning, it was like websites are going to transform the world, which they have. But fast forward, every business has a website. If you don't have a website, you're, you're not a real business almost in most cases. And so I think that's going to happen with AI where everybody's going to use it. They're going to be using all the tools. It's going to become almost transparent to how
Yeah,
you operate your business, and it'll just be part of the thing that you do. And so that's why, I talk to people all the time about you have to be up on what's happening because this is going to be a huge part of your business. Just like you have to learn finances and you have to learn marketing, you've got to learn these tools so that you can, hire effectively around who's going to run them or know how to vet companies that are going to service provide you some of those tools.
for sure. I mean, yeah, I mean, when I was in my private equity days, it was always about how do we create alpha, which is how do you outperform the other person? And it's, and a lot of it has to do with technology, and you have to, but it becomes almost overwhelming for some folks. So if you're able to, that's back to your point, like if you're able to package something, hey, just use this. We've already done all the heavy lifting for you. You don't have to go research anything. We already, we've kind of tested it and tried it, and those services become, really good, like consumer reports. We already tested everything for you.
Right.
You don't have to do it. We know what the best one is. And here you go. And here's why, and all these other things. So yeah, for sure. I mean, there's value there for sure. Gosh, I remember getting, oh my gosh, I'm aging myself. I remember getting those magazines, and my mom would be like so excited when the next Consumer Reports magazine came out. It's like, oh, what's the next gadget we can go get? I'm like, all right, okay.
Absolutely.
That's too funny. Too funny. So where do you see next for your business? Like where, I mean, obviously you're in residential real estate. It's like a weird economic time right now, and probably going to be stuck in this quagmire for a little bit. But are you taking advantage of this time to kind of reinvent a little bit, or what are you doing next, you think?
Uh, well, so even though the real estate market is a little bit wonky right now, both of our businesses are really thriving. I think what you see, though the real estate market has slowed down, the distress side of the real estate market doesn't really slow down too much. And in fact, when it's in a massive boom cycle, sometimes it's harder for investors because any home seller that's got a house that needs a bunch of repairs can just throw it in MLS. It'll sell immediately, even though it's needs a ton of work because the market's so hot. And so it becomes a lot more difficult for investors to find properties. When the market slows down, home sellers have fewer of those options, right? You can't just throw out property on the MLS and know that it's going to sell really quickly. And so on the buy side, we're seeing as many consumers, if not more, I'd say this year we're probably up a fair amount from last year, consumers contacting us to sell their house. And so
Mhm.
that side of the business is up right now, which is great to see
Yep.
from a kind of business standpoint. The struggle for investors is the disposition. It's the selling of the houses and trying to navigate the high interest rate markets with
Right.
being able to do rentals and those types of things. So, yeah, so some of the things that we've done to work on this or capitalize on this market are, we have a hard money lending operation now that we lend to people that are flipping houses because the banks at any interest rate don't want to give loans right now, which is really insane. But I've talked to so many real estate developers and people. There's like there's no money. It doesn't. I could give them 20% interest. They don't want to lend because of their covenants and rules and things that they have. So that's been a real struggle for a lot of people that we've been able to step in and fill the gap a little bit. And then I think aggressively pushing harder into the lead generation business. I think that is for us has been a real growth engine and looking at adjacent markets that we might go into. So, like I said, I think we're pretty dominant in the residential real estate investing space from a pay per lead standpoint,
Mhm.
and there are some options for us to go into kind of the mortgage side of things on lead gen, not starting a mortgage company, but generating leads in the mortgage space and the title space and some of these other spaces where the value of somebody that's in the middle of a real estate transaction is very high. And if you can
Right.
direct them to somebody that's going to solve a problem they need and that person is going to make money at it, everybody kind of wins. And so we have a lot of that infrastructure built. And so identifying, what are some of those verticals that we really want to execute on as we
Mhm.
kind of expand our footprint, staying within this residential real estate space, but kind of going right into an adjacent area to residential real estate space.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have the opportunity to kind of be like a hub of, you know, of transactions, right? And in the ecosystem for residential, I mean, you could, the title companies are going to want access to your folks, and everybody's going to want access to like who you got and what you got going on, right? So it's just, but obviously you don't open the floodgates, right? So you kind of figure out the best place to go there. That's awesome, though. I mean, it's a really cool position to have. Like when you're able to see certain things, I'll be there one day. I'll get there, maybe one of these days.
You've got all the data though.
I have all the data. I mean, I want to be the Google of buildings. That's what I tell
Love it.
everybody. I want to be the Google of buildings.
Well, I
And
mean, that's,
know
in a
everything.
different way, that's kind of what we have. And so I think that's a great thing to build because what I love is, they call it two-sided marketplaces or platforms where you're in the center of two different sides of things. And
Yeah,
that as long as, the center, let's call it the engine, um, which is what Google search engine actually is. It's in the middle of two different things, all the websites in the world and all the consumers are looking for information. So if you can sit in the middle of that, then your business can experience exponential growth if both sides grow. And
right.
without you having to, in a traditional business, like, well, you got a double manufacturing and double, distribution and double, it's massively people intensive and you got to do a lot of work to create that growth. Versus if you're a technology platform or a data platform, you can experience this exponential growth without a massive increase in infrastructure cost or people cost. And so we intentionally set the business up that way to be able to ride those waves. And it sounds like you did as well. And I think that's a great business model structure, whatever it is that you're selling,
Yeah.
to really ride the waves of growth without having the wheels come off.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll see. It's new. We'll see what happens. All those great
I
things.
believe in you, Amy.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's good. See, as long as you're here to cheerlead me on, I'll give you some pom poms.
Sometimes that's all it takes.
It is. It's very, very, very true. So like, are you, that's good to hear. I mean, so you kind of hang out in distressed land, right? I mean, that's kind of where you're at. And I would venture to guess, obviously there's a lot of stress in the market. There generally is. Back in the day when I was buying, there was. I think we're sitting in this, but are you, so with your hard money lending part, are you able to help close transactions? Are people willing to kind of, is that what you had to do in order? Because people are willing to sell, but there's no way for it to pencil for someone to buy it sometimes, right? Depends on that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah. So the hard money lending operation is really to help investors or developers buy things that traditionally they would have gotten a bank to do, but now the banks just don't want to do some of these
Right.
operations. It definitely doesn't help somebody that wants to sell a rental house.
Yeah.
One, you can't really do hard money on the house that somebody's going to live in, and then two, the interest rates are just way too high for that to
Right.
work. But a number of these deals that we've looked at are real estate developers or people that are buying an office building, and the bank has like said yes, 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 and then 30 days before they're closing on the purchase of something, the bank said, you know what, never mind, we're not going to do it. And they're up against a wall with their contract to buy a property, and so we'll step in with short-term financing for 30 or 90 days, or 90 to 180 days, while they get a new bank and get kind of things structured and can refinance the operation. Or if somebody's doing a fix and flip, then a higher interest rate makes sense for them as well. Where it's a
Yeah,
property they weren't going to be able to buy anyway, they're going to hold it for 3 months and then sell it and make quite a bit of money, and that covers the cost of the financing.
for
And
sure.
so, I've talked to a number of real estate developers that were like, I've never been in an environment where the bank would just refuse to lend money. The project is good, everything pencils out really positively with really strong margins. And I was talking to some bank presidents the other day, and I was asking, like, why are you getting, I'm loving these loans, they make tons of sense to us, why would a bank not make these loans? And he said, well, the problem that we have, because it's all regional banks, right, that do these types of loans.
Hmm.
He said the problem that we have is that our deposits are down, right, between Silicon Valley Bank and which is the first problem. People pulled a lot of their deposits out of the regional banks for fear that they were going to fail. And then two, interest rates are so high that everybody's taking their cash and putting them in short-term CDs, these short-term investments that make 5 or 6% interest, but pulls the cash out of their bank account.
Which
And so we said,
which
we have,
limits their lending? Do they have to have
right.
a
So he said,
cash
we have
reserve limit?
low cash balances comparatively, and we have to maintain these certain ratios, and we got to maintain a good padding on top of these ratios because we're seeing people
Mhm.
sweep cash out of the bank for different reasons, and we don't want to get caught. So we said we just in many cases can't do these loans, or we can only do 4 loans this month, and we're not going to do a real estate office loan, no matter how good it sounds, because we're just not going to do an office loan right now when we can do a something else loan. I'm like,
Right.
well, that makes sense. I get it. It's tough for all the real estate folks out there, but I understand, that reasoning and, the covenants that you have to be FDIC insured and all these types of things that
For
just
sure.
prevents you from doing more lending, which was, tough for the developers out there for sure. But,
It
we'll get
it
through it.
is. A lot of them press the pause button anyway and they're rethinking their business models. I mean, if you're a luxury developer, you got plenty of money. If you're an affordable developer, you're not a problem because it is gonna take you a little bit longer, but you're gonna work through the HUD and you go through all the subsidies and yeah, it takes you a little bit. There's still money there, right? It's the stuff in the middle that like nothing pencils, nothing makes sense, right? But if you're like Lincoln Property Company and they're building all this class AA, AAA, really nice stuff that chasing that market, they're gonna get money. They get their own, right? And
Yeah.
they'll find it and it makes sense. And no one's, I mean, it's an anomaly to me, like why people are still building office space. Like, I don't get it. Why are you building office space? But they're still building office space. And, especially in Austin, because we're like this weird office environment. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I'm up the road from you in Dallas, and their office buildings going up everywhere in Dallas. And I think part of it is, um, I was talking about this to somebody on the residential side of things, but I think it's true on the office building side of things. Much of Texas, Austin and DFW especially, just have a huge influx of people. So while
Mm,
many parts of the country, for sure, you shouldn't be building office, and in many cases, not building residential. In DFW and in Austin, you just see these massive housing developments going in. I
yep,
work with a lot of home builders. We just see them, putting down hundreds and hundreds of homes, because there's just so many people moving here. It doesn't really matter. The appetite for the inventory is there, and it's going to get sold and it's going to get used up. And I think that's something that's very unique to Texas and maybe a couple of other states, and
for sure.
not so true in California and some of these areas that are have a net loss of people versus a net gain of people.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the office space in Houston, I mean, that's like empty. And I don't understand that. And yeah, it's weird. It's weird how it fluctuates in certain things, but that's life and that's how it goes for
Yeah,
sure.
the boom and bust of real estate. It's
Yeah.
sometimes you're killing it, and sometimes you got to tighten your belt and figure out how to push through it.
So are you able to deter, so you said that you have the data and then you can kind of see which markets are going better than others or whatever, or people are trying to sell or whatever it might be. Are you seeing, do you, how far in the transaction do you get? You're on the marketing side of it. So you're not tracking sales and anything around pricing or anything like that, right? You're just looking at just demand at that
Yeah, so
point.
our proprietary data is, people that contact us to sell their house, the investor activity in that area. So what's the value of a lead in every particular area of the country? So that fluctuates a
Okay.
lot for us. And so that's a good indicator to us of, the supply and demand and how successful real estate investors are currently, or their
Mhm.
sentiment in any particular market. And so we really analyze a lot of that. But then, we don't stay involved in the transaction all the way through to the purchase, and then final disposition of it. Although for
Mhm.
analytical purposes, we track a lot of that. So we monitor county data, for transaction for leads that have come through our system to see, did they ultimately get bought? Did they ultimately get bought by our client? And then what happened on the other end of that transaction?
Oh, okay.
Did
Okay.
the client keep it or sell it in 90 days or kind of whatever? And so that provides really interesting analytics into, at least within our ecosystem of the home sellers contacting us, how many convert into a purchase, or by the
Mhm.
investor, and then kind of what happens to it. But that's all, public data or relatively public data that we mine to supplement, the leads that are coming into our system and understand kind of what's happening with them.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the best useful part of it, right? Is like, how effective are you, right? And then that's cool that you do that for sure. I mean, there's a lot of, there's a lot of folks out there, selling leads or doing whatever, but if you have an effective group of folks, is doing so you're not doing any sort of education with your groups. You create an ecosystem of like you pick your licensee as a very, experienced real estate investor. You kind of bet whoever it is you pick to be a license holder in a certain area, I'm assuming. And then this is a question. Do they get to sell their license or do they just say, hey, peace out, I'm good, I'm not doing this anymore, and thank you very much? And how does that all work? I'm just curious.
Yeah, no, absolutely. They can sell their license. And in most cases, they have built a lot of equity in the license. So they sell it for significantly more than they paid for it.
Hmm.
Yeah. And so we have to vet whoever they want to sell the license to, of course, because we want to maintain a certain level of quality in the
Right.
system of anybody that's representing the brand. But as long as that buyer passes those checks, then absolutely. We've had I don't know, maybe 10 or 12 people sell their licenses over the years for one reason or another. I think Austin was one of them. And I think the person in Austin sold their license for significantly more than they paid for it.
No, I'm
When they,
sure.
yeah, no surprise. It's Austin.
No surprise. It's Austin for sure.
Yeah.
But like any of those hot markets, that's kind of interesting. So you created a different value, another
Yeah.
value set.
Well, and in a lot of cases, our clients, they added to the equity value that they created in that brand, right? So if you're in if you're in a market, let's pick Austin, and you buy a WeBuyHouses.com license, we've already got this national brand recognition. People are familiar with the brand; they've heard it. They might not know the exact company, but they've heard the brand. But then you go spend, $1 million over the next couple of years putting up billboards and running TV commercials on local TV stations and sending out direct mail. All of that advertising dollars that you put into the Austin market has built a lot of brand equity in that market for the
Sure.
brand on top of the national kind of the baseline national equity, the local awareness and equity. And we have one guy that sponsors race cars in his market in Arizona and just kind of does a lot of stuff with philanthropy using the brand. So the logo's on all kinds of different charity things and passions that he has. And so they build that brand equity over time. And so when they sell it, absolutely, I would expect that they would recoup that equity that has been built over time because the awareness and the trust in the local market is even higher than kind of the baseline at the national level.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it makes total sense. All right. Well, that's awesome. So, where do you think I'll pull crystal ball time. Pull your crystal ball out. Where do you think
Everybody looks
and
dumb 5 years from
we
now.
get our funny hats, fortune tellers go like this. And where do you think your business goes in the next couple of years, do you think? Where do you can you can go out 3 years. Where do you think you're at?
Sure. Yeah, so I think we're continuing to scale the things that we do. I think there's still a lot of space for us to grow in what we're doing with the lead gen and the licensing side of things. Within, I would say, probably not even 3 years, within a year to two, we will have a number of AI tools that we are using internally that we are offering to the marketplace to do different things, kind of like we talked about, very purpose-built things where it's you know pay $10 a month to have this thing do this thing automatically for you, and it saves you a bunch of time. We have built a lot of those things ourselves, just using ChatGPT and these different tools that have made our business much more efficient. But they're kind of kludgy and they're kind of hacked together. But I can see it's saved 20% or 30% of an employee's time in what they're doing. So now they can focus on something else while automation takes care of a problem that they were just wasting a bunch of time on. And so I think I'm really excited about building some of these tools for people. And I think that has a significant amount of scale in it to provide, you call it AI, but it's really business automation and business intelligence kind of in a
Yes.
box for people. So AI is the buzzword, but the reality of what you're getting as a result of those things are, automation and efficiency and intelligence. And so I'm excited about building those tools. Like I said, I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I love creating things. I love building new things. I love kind of putting them out into the world and seeing them grow and seeing people use them successfully and love them and help it make their business better. And so that's really in kind of all of our businesses. I'm excited about launching some of those things over the next couple of years and providing a lot of value to the investor community, but probably the real estate community at large.
Very, very cool. All right. Well, this has been such a cool conversation. Thanks for coming on my show. I
My
really,
pleasure.
really appreciate it. Yeah. So how can someone get a hold of you? Should they want to get a hold of you?
I'm on Twitter or X now, Jeremy Brandt, just my full name. Or you can reach me at jeremy@fasthomeoffer.com. And our websites are fasthomeoffer.com and webuyhouses.com if you want to check them out.
You stole the Capital One guy's Twitter handle? Are you seriously?
I was in technology a long time before he was. I also have jeremybrandt.com. He doesn't like me. He does not like me.
That's true. Before you go, tell us the Shark Tank story. You have to get, I forgot. The
Okay, I'll
Shark
close the
Tank
Shark. So,
story.
so it's not my story. I was on Shark Tank with a friend of mine, not pitching. He has a business that staffs, very successful entrepreneur, used to run a lead gen business like I do and sold it. And he started a business. This is how you know you can make money doing anything. He started a business staffing Santa Clauses all over the country and all over the world, staffing Santa Clauses during Christmas time for businesses and home parties and whatever. Business grows and grows and grows. Started as kind of a hobby, and he couldn't help but turn it into a real business. And so he had this idea to go pitch it on Shark Tank, not mostly just for the awareness. And so as a really smart entrepreneur, he really planned out his entire thing of how do you get on Shark Tank? What do you got to do to be on Shark Tank? Well, you got to create a spectacle. So when he went and pitched the producers, he had this spectacle that he was going to create to be on Shark Tank. They loved it. He gets selected, and so is going to go out to LA to be on Shark Tank and pitch it. And he invited me and another one of our friends to be on as mascots. So he's dressed up as an elf. I'm dressed up as Frosty the Snowman. Our other friend is dressed up as Rudolph. And he comes in to do the pitch and has like 30 Santa Clauses come in around him and sit all around the sharks. So there's 30 Santa Clauses on set while he does this pitch for why they should invest in his Santa Claus staffing business called Hire Santa.
That's
And
genius there.
yeah,
Yeah.
amazing experience, tons of fun. Really learned a lot about the Shark Tank process because he and I were just talking about it all the time and kind of gaming out what would happen and what do you do if all the sharks go out? What's the right response to that? And a number
Interesting.
of things that we had gamed out happened, and he was able to pull them back in through a bunch of the strategies that we had kind of talked about, and ultimately got a deal. And I was standing there on set with him when one of the producers was talking to him, and I said, I don't think we've ever had anybody be on Shark Tank that was more prepared than you were to be here. Like he had
Oh,
really
that's
thought about it.
awesome. Yeah.
And in his mind, I think he said, the value of an appearance on Shark Tank is worth $1 million or $2 million to a business. And
Oh,
so
for
how
sure.
much work would you put into $1 million or $2 million deal? Well, I got to put at least that much work into this Shark Tank appearance. And, we were hanging out in the star trailers in the back lot, with the other people that are going to appear on Shark Tank. And it was obvious a lot of people, like, they were doing this between breakfast and lunch. Like they had not thought about their appearance at all. They hadn't planned it out. It was, man, and sometimes you see it on the show where people are just blindsided by an obvious question. They don't know how to answer it.
Yeah.
But it was a hoot. It was a ton of fun. We had a great time. We're out in LA for, I think, a week. And Shark Tank is a really cool experience. I'd recommend anybody that's got a business that's kind of a fit for Shark Tank to take a shot at it. But the way to get on is, remember, it's entertainment. So you got to create entertainment before you think about the business side of it.
Very true. Very true. That's awesome. That's very cool. Well, it's been great. Thank you so much. And we'll catch you on the next one. We'll have to
Yeah.
get a
Thank you, Amy.
revamp on the next one.
All right.
All right, we'll see you. Thanks.
Take care.